9 o'clock, and we are finally ready to kick the 2023 edition of the BioStock Life Science Fall Summit off. I'm extremely happy to be here today, and equally happy to see all of you here today. We are ready for a jam-packed 2 event days. We have 40 companies presenting, we have panel discussions and expert insights, and of course we have a lot of mingle time, because that's one of the biggest perks with having these in-person events. So I hope you enjoy these 2 days. I hope you are with us 2 days. We have, well, more than 500 registered participants, so we are looking forward to some really intense days. With me here on stage, I have the brilliant moderators for these 2 days, Cecilia Hallström and Michael Jewett. And they will be taking good care of the presenting companies. And of course, the whole BioStock team is on standby to take care of you. So whatever you need, grab someone with a BioStock name tag, and we'll try to help you out. I think with that, I will leave the word to my fellow moderators, and just want to say again, thank you for coming, and have a pleasant time with us. Thank you.
The presentations will be 10 minutes long with 5 minutes for Q&A. The presenters will be interrupted by myself and Mike when they hit around 10 minutes, because it's very important for us that you as investors and just generally people who are interested get a chance to ask your questions. And with that, I would like to introduce the first speaker of the day, Abliva's CMO, Magnus Hansen. Welcome.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here today, and it's an honor to be the first company presenting with this impressive lineup. So yes, I'm Magnus Hansson, Chief Medical Officer at Abliva, and at Abliva our mission is to target the powerhouse of the cells to improve the lives of mitochondrial disease patients. And we do that by doing innovative drug discovery and development to find new innovative treatments for this group of rare diseases. So Abliva, we are focused to become a global leader in mitochondrial medicine. And we can do that based on our long expertise in mitochondrial medicine and in drug development, and with a portfolio of innovative compounds. Our leading compound is KL1333. This is currently in a phase 2 study, but it's a phase 2 study. Like in other rare diseases, you can only perform so few studies. There are simply not just enough patients. So this has been designed to be a pivotal study. So it's a potentially registrational study, the last study to take us to marketing approval. And we're a public company listed on NASDAQ with the ticker ABLI. So I wanted to start with some recent highlights. Last month, the global community came together to raise awareness for mitochondrial disease. And we released a number of short videos about our different activities, and they are available on our webpage and on YouTube. We also recently received a fast-track designation by the US FDA, and this is an important recognition that mitochondrial disease is a serious rare disease, and that KL1333, our lead compound, has the ability and potential to address a really high unmet medical need. And maybe the most important news from our side during the last month is that we have completed the first wave of screening activities for our phase 2 Falcon study. So that means we are on track to complete enrollment for this first part to enable an interim analysis around mid next year, as we have planned. So backing up a little bit, what are mitochondria? Well, mitochondria are these tiny bits of your cell that enables efficient energy production. So utilizing oxygen and the foodstuff we eat to produce ATP molecules. So mitochondrial disease, that's when there is a genetic mutation or alteration that disrupt this efficient energy generation. So here are some examples of some of the interviews that we have taped with patients to teach us about mitochondrial disease, specifically the patient burden brought on by these diseases. So primary mitochondrial disease, it's a group of rare disease that affects about 1 in 5,000 individuals. So it is rare, but it's not super rare. They are typically devastating, depending on which organs are involved. So in childhood, it's often lethal with severe brain manifestations. In adults, with the later onsets, typically the muscles are the part of the body that is most affected. And that's how we have targeted our KL1333 compound. So typically, organs requiring a lot of energy are most affected. And importantly, there are no approved therapies for mitochondrial disease. So this is an illustration of our portfolio. KL1333, as I said, is our lead compound in a potentially registrational phase 2 study called the Falcon study. Our second program, MV354, targets a different part of the disease, severe neurological manifestations. And that program is phase 1 ready. So mitochondrial disease, we see it as a really attractive market opportunity. Even with quite modest assumptions, we see that we have over $1 billion market. And here we have assumed that we are second to market, and we have also assumed there will be upcoming price pressure also for the rare disease market. And of course, with more bullish assumptions, the case looks even stronger. So since this is an area with no approved treatments, of course, there are no established clinical development paths. So we have thought long and hard about this, and we thought, well, let's go to the patients first, because what resonates with patients usually then resonates very well with the regulatory authorities and with payers. And we have good feedback for that part. So back in 2019, we teamed up with some of the biggest patient advocacy groups to arrange a externally led drug development workshop leading to a Voice of Patient report. And one of the questions we asked this group of patients and families was, well, which symptoms or parts of the disease would you like us as a drug development company to focus on? And the answer was pretty clear. There were two things that really stood out. Fatigue, so general sensation of really lack of energy, both mental and physical, and then specific muscle issues like muscle weakness. So that's what we decided to focus our development program on. So throughout the clinical program, we have focused on these two aspects of disease. And in the ongoing Falcon study, we have two primary endpoints, one focusing on fatigue, and there we have developed and validated a short form, and the patients can answer this every week on their own smartphone or a device that we give them. And when they come into the clinic, we do a specific muscle test, the 30-second sit-to-stand test. And we've had the opportunity to actually test this in really small scale. So in our phase 1 program, we performed a small phase 1b study. This was a placebo-controlled study, about 6 active and 2 placebo subjects. But even with a small group of patients, we saw promising signals of treatment effects, both when it comes to reduction of fatigue and when it comes to improvement of muscle function. And the magnitude of these changes, if we compare to other disease areas, would be considered to be clinically meaningful. And also we saw exposure effect relationship. So the ongoing phase 2 Falcon study, it has been designed to be a pivotal study if successful. So we have a long screening or a run-in period, then almost a year of treatment. And this is, of course, a placebo-controlled study. And we focus on a group of adult patients with both the most common type of mutation and the most common and debilitating disease expressions from the patient perspective, so fatigue and myopathy. And it has a number of adaptive components, including dose and the final sample size of the study. So The interim analysis that is coming up mid next year will do a sample size reassessment, so we will make sure that we have strong power for both our primary endpoints. So the management team of Abliva, so Ellen Donnelly is the CEO. She was previously CEO of Modus Therapeutics and comes from a lot of senior leadership positions in Pfizer before coming to Sweden. Katarina Johansson, CFO, is with me here today. Eskil Elmer, Chief Scientific Officer, is also the founder of the company. And our latest addition to the management team is Dag Nesse, who has worked with these late-stage compounds, bringing them to marketing approval. So really valuable expertise for the phase where we are at. So we see that we are geared up to become a global leader in mitochondrial medicine to deliver good health and well-being for our target groups. So I hope you join us and follow us on this path. Thank you.
Thank you, Magnus. We have a couple of questions here already, actually, for you.
Good.
That we got from the audience. So the first one is, what are you mainly looking at in your interim analysis?
So it's two things. It's a futility analysis, and then it's the sample size reassessment. So it will be completely blinded to us, so there's no efficacy test. Of course, we'll also look at safety. So we will have an independent data monitoring committee to recommend us, but the main recommendations are two, is continue the study or not, and then what is the final study size. So now we have recruited this first part, and we will base that interim analysis on 40 patients with 6-month data, and the final study size will be anywhere between 120 and 180 patients.
But that is to be determined.
To be determined, yeah.
And a follow-up question on that, actually, that we may as well take immediately, is how does the fact that you reach that target screening number just the other week, actually, how does that impact the timeline for the Falcon study, including the interim analysis?
Well, it means that we actually will be able to reach the timeline as planned. So what we communicated was that we have completed the screening activities, but then the screening window is 8 to 12 weeks. So that means we count on having all those patients that qualify to enter the study dosed by the end of the year, and then the interim analysis will be based on 6-month data.
I was also wondering, you talk a lot about the feedback that you get from patients, but I was wondering, have you had any feedback from the medical professionals?
Yes, I mean, so this is a quite small community. So a lot of the investigators that are part of our trial are also the leading key opinion leaders in the field. And they, of course, have been instrumental in designing the study and also helped us with interactions with the regulatory authorities.
So you have close connection to the mito community, not just the patients, but also the professionals.
Exactly. So we have for quite a number of years participated in the main scientific meetings, and coming from the scientific side, they see that we have a good understanding of both basic mitochondrial medicine, but also the patient need. So I believe that makes us quite strong in this community. And of course, that's also important for the upcoming commercialization, that often, for instance, in Sweden, in UK, and a lot of other European countries, as well as the US, these patients usually go to see a few centers in each state. So in the US, there is it's called NAMDAC, the North American Mitochondrial Disease Consortium. So we have good contact with all those experts that see a large proportion of the patients. So that will, of course, facilitate the commercialization phase.
We've had a question about costs, which is what is the cost of the phase 2 study?
Well, since it is a quite big study, it is an expensive study, but then the size is between 120 and 180 patients. So what we did last year was to finance the study up until the interim analysis.
And yeah, that was going to be my second question, was the overall financial status of Abliva, but then you're financed through to the interim.
Exactly.
I have another question here about what the primary launch market is if the trials are successful. Are you aiming at the US or Europe or?
Well, we have targeted the US to be primary in our development, but of course we have received feedback from both regions, both from the regulatory side and the payer side.
And as a final question then, could you just give a quick update what's happening in the other projects? I'm thinking mainly of NV354.
Well, we have developed that program to be clinic stage ready and have also discussed that with the regulatory authorities. But now our focus is on our main program. So that development doesn't have a clear timeline yet.
Thank you very much, Magnus.
Thank you.
And with that, I would like to welcome our second speaker of the day, the CEO of Spago Nanomedical, Mats Hansen.
Thank you, Cecilia, and thank you to the whole BioStock team for pulling together yet another very interesting and important event. I guess all of us in this room share the same vision of bringing new innovation to improve or even prolong the lives of patients or people with severe diseases. With Spago Nanomedical, we are pursuing this in two ways. First, we want to improve precision in medical imaging in a way that will allow better treatment of patients with, for instance, breast cancer or endometriosis. Secondly, and perhaps more important, we are pursuing a new radiopharmaceutical that can expand the scope of radiopharmaceuticals and effective radiotherapy to patients with severe cancer. Right now, we are very much focused on cancer that affects women, like breast cancer, and we are very interested in ovarian cancer. We are also, with our imaging project, looking into endometriosis, which is a disease with a very, very high need of new diagnostics and a disease that affects millions of women worldwide. And the results we have got with our SpagoPix program, our imaging program, shows that we have a technology that allows us to accumulate our nanomaterial selectively in tumor lesions and perhaps also in endometrial lesions. And I'm very, very happy to stand here today and say that we have just got approval to start our first clinical trial with Tumorad, our radiopharmaceutical program in Australia, which is a huge milestone for Spago Nanomedical that now has one project in clinic in diagnostics and one in therapeutics. So for this presentation, I'm going to focus quite a lot on Tumorad. And what makes Tumorad unique is the ability to target several types of cancers. The radiopharmaceuticals today that are approved or in late-stage pipeline are all directed towards a single type of cancer by means of their targeting mechanisms. What we want to do is to broaden that scope. So if we look into the mechanism by which Tumorad accumulates in tumors, I will come back to this in a second as well, we can see that there are several tumor types that could be targetable by this pharmaceutical, like colorectal, like breast cancer, gastric, and ovarian. And it's important to say that with breast cancer, we already generated imaging data that shows that we can selectively accumulate in the breast cancer tumors. We do recognize that ovarian cancer is an indication of huge medical need. There are few treatment opportunities. It's a devastating disease, and we do think that there are good reasons to go with that indication for Tumorad as well. So we see that Tumorad can provide a treatment opportunity both as a monotherapy but also in combinations with existing therapies. So how do we do this? Well, we have developed an optimized platform of polymeric nanoparticles that are very safe in the human body and that can accumulate selectively in the tumors. This sounds easy. I can tell you it's not. It has taken quite some time to get where we are today. And what we found out during the development of the imaging project is that this material has the ability to bind in a very, very, very tight way and a very stable way clinically proven radioisotopes, which means that we can use this material as a radiopharmaceutical. So what we have and what we ended up with, and we just communicated the other day that we are now expanding the patent protection of this program, is truly a unique and first-in-class compound that can provide the potential for treatment with clinically effective radioisotopes of a broader population of patients. So we've come a good way with this, and as I said, we've proven that we can visualize selectively breast cancer. We have proven in the animals that we can see also tumors there of different kinds. We have preclinical data that supports clinical translation, both in terms of safety and regulatory studies. And of course, we have survival data that shows that we can prolong the life of animals with cancer. So all of this leads up to the first clinical trial with Tumorad, which I'm extremely happy to say that we are now starting in Australia. It's a phase 1/2A trial in cancer patients with the aim of obviously documenting initial safety and escalating doses. More importantly, during the phase 1, since this is a radiopharmaceutical, we have the ability to trace it within the body and through the body, which means that at a quite early stage, we will be able to predict the potential to reach a favorable benefit-risk profile with this compound. So that's a very important milestone that we hope that we'll be able to reach during first half of next year. And running the study in Australia, just commenting on that, which as it may seem a bit strange to go all across the world, they have a very beneficial reimbursement system there for R&D costs, which means that we can get back approximately 43% of what we pay there for doing the trial. So it's a very cost-effective way of doing a clinical trial. So just to round up, we are now clinical stage with 2 legs, diagnostics and therapeutics. We have a unique platform, very strongly patented by us. The imaging program provides clinical validation of the technology, so reducing the risk. And obviously the clinical translation of Tumorad, the radiopharmaceutical, now allow us to get to meaningful data at an early stage, which will be very interesting to see, and a potential value inflection point next year. So we see a lot of things happening in the near term, and it's very exciting. So I will stop there and be happy to take questions. Thank you.
Thank you. So, yeah, again, you're popular here. The first question is if Tumorad can be considered a personalized therapy.
Well, in a way, it can, as all radiopharmaceuticals, as they can be traced with different imaging technologies like SPECT or planar imaging, things like that. You could imagine giving a small dose first and then seeing where it ends up and then treat the patient afterwards. That's not the route we are taking right now, because we think there may be difficulties delaying treatment in these often very severely sick patients. So there are different ways of going there. Right now we see it as a general treatment.
And someone else, also called Anonymous, would like to know, radiopharma is so hot, I assume in the colloquial sense here. Are there many recent deals and M&As going on in this area?
Oh yes, very much so. And just the past months, there has been some really big deals. Eli Lilly bought Point Biopharma, for instance, for $1.4 billion just a couple of weeks ago. There have been others. There have been a series of IPOs and investments, mainly in the US, of course. But we see that both on the investment side and on big pharma side, there is definitely an increasing interest in this field.
Yeah, we also have a question about that, I guess then ties in a little bit to the competitive landscape, that how does your candidate compare in its ability to target the tumors? How does it compare to similar drugs?
Well, I mean, there aren't much similarity in the sense that we are utilizing a physiological targeting mechanism rather than a molecular targeting mechanism. So what we see, the agents that are approved today are based on peptides or antibodies, and also in the late stage pipeline, that's what we typically see. Our particles have a more, let's say, physiological or passive way of targeting the tumor. So there are differences. And the point here is that really Tumorad has the potential to go for other cancers that cannot be targeted today by molecular means.
And then we have a rather, well, from my point of view, rather technical question, that the isotope 177Lu, if that's how you pronounce it, that you are using, has that been used in other radiopharmaceuticals?
It has, yes. It's definitely clinically validated. It's been used by Novartis, for instance, in their approved drugs Authera and Pluvicto, which are now, I believe, at least nearing blockbuster status. So yeah, it's definitely proven. It's a beta radiator. Now I'm too getting technical here. It's a beta radiator, so it's shooting away electrons that break DNA strands. And yeah, I mean, radioactivity has been known for hundreds of years to be effective to treat cancer. The trick or the difficulty is to get it in the right dose to the right sites in the body. And that's what we are seeing now.
Someone is also asking about the endometriosis area, which is your latest venture, so to speak. And if it binds to the endometriosis cells, will it affect the treatment of endometriosis?
Well, it doesn't bind, and that's the thing here. We are not binding anything to anything. We are accumulating our particles in the lesions, and the same goes for endometriosis, which is inflammatory lesions that shares a lot of similarities to tumors. And right now we are evaluating the images coming out of our phase 2A trial in endometriosis patient. It looks promising, but we don't have the final data yet. But what we aim to do there is to, as I said initially, we want to accomplish a better precision in the imaging of these women. That usually, I mean, diagnosis of endometriosis, I think that the mean time is 7 years or something like that. And treatments are not very precise. It's hormonals and painkillers and sometimes surgery. So what we want to do is to aid the diagnosis and also probably aid the surgery of these patients to be more precise.
You mentioned you don't have the final data there yet. When do you expect to have the?
The analysis is ongoing, so we expect to communicate something before year end on that.
And as a final question, then you highlighted here the advantages of using Australia for your clinical trials. Will you be going to Australia, or how do you manage the?
I wish.
How do you manage on the ground?
Well, yeah, we have a lot of people, good people on the ground in Australia. And we have a very competent and good chief development officer here as well, who is managing the trial in an excellent way. He will probably go there.
So Paul will go to Australia.
He will probably go there, lucky him, but not I.
Well, okay, so Paul's the lucky one, and I guess you're lucky in the sense that the presentation and the Q&A is now over.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Mats. And we are all lucky because we will get to listen to Martin Vallet, the CEO of BrainCool. Welcome, Martin.
Sorry. Thank you. So I will take the opportunity to give an update of BrainCool. We are a medical device company based here in Lund, founded around 2014, focusing on brain recovery and improving life for intensive care patients. The common denominator of our product is medical cooling. And in short, we've developed 3 medical device products: BrainCool system, which cooled patients at the ICU, mainly cardiac arrest patients, treatment of neurological fever from 32 hours up to 10-15 days. This is our first product to market. We launched it beginning of 2020, improved sales from 5, 10, 20, and have signed a large distribution deal recently with Sol Medical. RhinoShield is also a brain cooling product, which will take the brain cooling treatment one step further. It could treat patients already on the street when you get a cardiac arrest, and a very early phase for stroke patients, which are then transferred to the BrainCool system later in the ICU. On top of this, we developed a medical device called Coral System, breakthrough device designation from the FDA. It just had, it's FDA approved, and we just announced that we get a CP3 code, which is the first and a very important step to obtain reimbursement for this device. I just want to show you the basis for what BrainCool doing. Here on the right, you see where the BrainCool system are. This is standard of care, a market of 4 or 5 million Swedish per year, with system that treats patients in the intensive care. All feasibility studies, all animal studies indicate that you should cool as quickly as possible. You start treating these patients after 4, 5, 6 hours in the ICU, but we have data that if you can start cooling patients very, very early, you get dramatically different results. We are the only company in the world that has a device that's approved for pre-hospital treatment of cardiac arrest and early cooling for stroke. So that is the long-term vision of BrainCool. What we then are doing with these 3 devices is the BrainCool system has an ambition to have revenues being profitable of more than 100 million Swedish already 2025. We got upfront orders in this distribution deal with Sol of more than 100 million. We are on a market driven by, thank you, I got a slide call. By guidelines, there is competition, but there is a great growth case for BrainCool with a device with a good patent protection and a very good business model. Then we're running trials with the RhinoShield, early cooling of cardiac arrest patients, follow the BrainCool system at the ICU, clinical trials completely funded by the Karolinska Institute with the aim to show that we really could improve the life and survival of cardiac arrest patients. We're using the same technology for early cooling of stroke patients in the hospital treated with thrombectomy. We already published our first result of our first trial with dramatically improvement of survival, a good neurological outcome of stroke patients. These 2 projects will take this company further in a couple of years. We expect to launch the stroke product already 2025, and 2 years later, a new treatment for cardiac arrest. Finally, the Coral system is an outlier because it's for an oncologist, for a side effect called cardiac arrest, called oral mucositis, a side effect of cancer treatment. On average, US patients have healthcare cost of $25,000 of this side effect. We're the only solution approved. There's no pharmaceutical product approved, so we are the first mover, and we work hard now to get solid reimbursement before we launch this product. I go in very little on our trials, mentioning primarily our project in stroke, which is funded by the European Union of more than 3 million euro. We actually go into the neuro cath lab where you do a procedure called thrombectomy. You start cooling with our early cooling device, RhinoShield. You cool down the patient very, very quickly in 30 minutes when they undergo the thrombectomy and then onto the ICU. And we're doing this because although thrombectomy has improved survival with good neurological outcome of stroke patients dramatically since the launch started 2016. We have shown that by cooling this patient, you could dramatically reduce the brain damage. What we've shown in our first feasibility data comparing to historical data and the shift analysis, that we proved survival good neurological outcome from 34% to 68%. And this is unseen. There has been 1,000 pharmaceutical agents from the renowned biotech industry trying to reach the market for ischemic stroke, and we think we can launch a completely new treatment already 2025. We also have similar fantastic results in cardiac arrest, showing dramatic improvement if you cool patients within 20 minutes compared to 4 or 5 hours today. That really improves survival with complete neurological recovery. This we're trying to show in a larger randomized trial with Karolinska Institute trials that will be completed 2027. Coral system, in short, side effect of cancer treatment, you cool the mouth when you undergo chemotherapy. We also have a product for radiation. The cooling makes the chemotherapy not reaching the cells, same strategy as the hair growth companies. And we have shown with trials with Karolinska very, very solid results that led to US approval. We're now working to get reimbursement. So in short, BrainCool is a medical device company. We get sales, we will see revenues, we have a sharp business model, but furthermore, we have very interesting clinical trials that can take this medical device to complete new therapies, and they are not funded by BrainCool. We've been very, very successful in raising EU grants up to 80 million until now. You probably know all about the long-term cost of stroke. I will not go into details, but we think we can save healthcare cost of each stroke and cardiac arrest patients of $100,000 per patient and thereby obtain very, very strong reimbursement. We got sales breakthrough with the BrainCool system. I guess you already heard about that. We have enormous business case together with Sol, which is a major international player, where we signed a distribution deal for US or Germany. We're launching early November in Southeast Asia, and there's a big potential that we can expand this product further internationally. There's a breakthrough potential of the RhinoShield. In our trials of cardiac arrest, if they would be successful at Karolinska Institute to show that you improve survival with complete neurological recovery if you cool patients within 20 minutes, all these patients will be cooled with RhinoShield and then with BrainCool in the ICU. It's about 700K patients in the EU and US. We are the only one that could then cool patients within 20 minutes, so we think we have a dramatic opportunity to obtain reimbursement and much higher pricing there too. NevroChill, I mentioned, it goes without saying. We expect 2025, if our randomized trial of 400 patients to be successful, to launch this product already then in both US and America, where then we'll cool patients that undergo thrombectomy, which is another medical device procedure. Oral mucositis, I mentioned the potential with the first mover product. We haven't launched yet. BrainCool is a fairly small company, so this is still a business development project, but it's worth mentioning that some of the healthcare costs per patients in the US, for example, in lymphoma patients are between $70,000 to $300,000 per patient. So I think our breakthrough project has almost pharma project potential, but without having to spend all the money. Management, myself, our CEO is recruited from Arcede Medical, where he was Vice President of Development. We got a CTO who's been one of the main developers for Lucas, a device that's now is RN25,000 ambulance. Excellent quality scientific director and CFO. And that's about it. If I have 10 seconds.
I will give you 10 seconds.
I should mention, why on earth should you invest in BrainCool? BrainCool is not average. We got through breakthrough device designations. That's the way we deal with the FDA. We recently approved a 510K for our product iCool in 19 days. You have not seen a company doing that ever in Europe. We got sales, we got growth, we got very good business models. We've shown that we can sign distribution deal, partner agreement with global companies. We have trials, groundbreaking trials, stroke and cardiac arrest, funded by somebody else. If we succeed in that, you should take the money, biotech investors, and put them, maybe not in BrainCool, but definitely in medical device. That's about it.
Thank you. We have lots of questions for you here, Martin. I think we will start with quite a basic one. How do you cool down the brain?
No, it's the products of today, like BrainCool system, is a surface-based cooling where you cool down the whole body. It's like sort of a chemotherapy. So you cool down the body with the aim to cool down the brain. But obviously, the long-term target and the best product would be selective BrainCool. And then if we look into our second product, the RhinoChill, you cool down the brain through a catheter with the cooling agents and pressured air. So you cool very, very quickly and very hard. And this has to be done in sedated patients. The challenge then with RhinoChill is that you can probably cool only up to 3-4 hours. But it's shown in the ICU that you have to treat the patients often for days. So I think we have the perfect combination. We can do selective brain cooling and then combine it with our products. If one go way back in time, our first idea was to make selective brain cooling with a product called Polar Cap system, which had neck cooling. Then we should then tag along to the BrainCool system. But we divested that company to the stock market, and it's now doing very successful treatment of concussion, sports-related concussions. Long answer to your short question.
Well, you mentioned divesting a company there. We've had a question here saying that the oncology product is the odd bird in your portfolio. Could you potentially divest that and focus all the resources on the neurological space?
I should give an honest answer, which might hurt someone. We divested PolarCool. It didn't have any management present. From the sidelines, it's been a tough journey to watch this company. I think you shouldn't divest a company if you don't have a management in place directly from the start that worked way, way before you divest it. However, we have shown that we can sell. It's public that we've been offered money for the iCool system. Often more money than we have had as a stock market value. So that could be an option. But it's not really a question for, it might be a question for Machiavelli, but we have a very strong board, new owners now, so it's nothing that's communicated.
Right.
Personally, I don't think Spotlights need another medical device company with weak management. Saying that, BrainCool has not a weak management.
Keeping with the theme of making money, will the forecast of 100 million in sales 2025 generate profit in 2025?
Well, I mean, the short answer is yes. But then you have to come back to what is BrainCool doing in the stroke, cardiac arrest, and oncology case. Should we continue to push money in this, which we have been very successful getting money from the EU, etc. So there you have the classic challenge with BrainCool. I think the industrial companies like Sol, Medtronic, Terumo, they love us because we're like an industrial company with a lot of products and a lot of synergies. But the stock market have been healthy skeptical. So I don't have a good well, yes, we can be definitely profitable with this product line.
A final question that I think has a definite answer, because going back to the science, how much brain temperature decrease do you see in your stroke trials, just to mention the stroke here?
That's a very good question, because of course there's a surrogate how you measure the brain temperature. Because how should you measure the brain temperature for stroke patients? I mean, there's a number of different technologies, but we have done in our animal studies, for example, run chill on pigs, where you broke up the skull and put a thermometer in the brain, which you can't do, unfortunately. No, I'm kidding, on the stroke patients. But our surrogate is that we can cool down up to 2.7 degrees in a very short period of time. One should then compare to our product BrainCool system or the market of the ICU. This takes hours for other products. And I think here is the true pitch of BrainCool. If you can cool down the brain very, very quickly, you get the dramatic results we see in our stroke trials. I should make one comparison. There has been one of the biggest stroke meetings in Toronto, or the biggest stroke meeting of the year in Toronto 2 weeks ago. There's a number of the biotech, I'm smiling, the biotech companies or pharma companies that rebirthed the drugs for ischemic stroke and try to do them in parallel with thrombectomy. And one of the biggest trial was presented in Toronto, and they failed their target to improve survival of good neurological outcome of 2%. We improve with 34%. So that's the trick of early cooling. That was too long answer, you think?
Yeah, but it was also the perfect way to end the presentation. So thank you so much, Martin. All right, and we will welcome up Mia Lundblad, the CEO of Arcede Pharma. Welcome, Mia.
Thank you very much, and it's always a pleasure being at BioStock. And actually, we have accomplished quite a lot of things since we last were here in the spring. For example, we have completed our tox studies, and we have also performed a market access showing that we have an asset with $1 billion or billion euro drug asset, actually. But maybe I should start from the beginning for those of you who haven't followed us that closely. So Arcede Pharma, in brief, we are a small company, and we were established last year, and we're at the same time listed on the Spotlight stock market. We have a longer history, though, of being a research project from the Lund University. The company, we have some projects and also a lot of, or several patents, but we are focusing right now on our drug candidate, Arcede 405, which is a patent-protected substance with a unique and dual mode of action, having actually both anti-inflammatory properties as well as airway relaxing properties, and aimed for the treatment of chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, COPD. And COPD is an inflammatory disease, and it's a progressive disease. And it's characterized by a lot of disabling symptoms, but also by exacerbations. And exacerbations are worsening of the symptoms. And they lead and they cause, over time, a progression of the disease and a reduction in the quality of life. And in the end, these patients also usually need hospitalizations. And once they have been in hospital, it's quite often that they need to be readmitted within a relatively short time frame again. And this vicious cycle with exacerbations and reduction in lung function and so on is eventually lethal. And then by having a possibility to reduce these exacerbations, you would also have an impact on the disease itself. And the mortality I mentioned, it's actually COPD is the third leading cause of death globally, with more than 3 million people dying of this disease every year. In addition, it is the indication with a high unmet medical need. And the treatments that are available, they primarily target the symptoms, but not the underlying disease itself. The drugs also that are available, many of them are associated with side effects, and some also lose effect over time, so-called receptor desensitization. So there is really an urgent need for new and innovative treatments that can actually target the underlying disease itself, so that you can stop or at least diminish the progression of the disease. So having an effect on the underlying disease and preventing this exacerbation would not only benefit the patients, but also the enormous costs that are associated with the management of COPD. Because as you can see in this graph here, the green part of each bar here in the different countries actually represents the hospitalizations costs. So the main part of the costs for treating and managing these patients are related to hospitalizations. And as I said, the cause of the hospitalizations is often the exacerbations that are linked to the underlying inflammation. So preventing exacerbations and limiting the disease to a more early, mild disease stage, which actually then have an influence not only on the costs, but also on the patient's lives. And here we see Arcede 405, our drug asset and our drug candidate. It possesses a unique and dual mode of action outside of the established pharmacological pathways. It has this dual effect with both an airway relaxing effect and an anti-inflammatory effect. So there is a big potential that we can slow the course of the progression of the disease, and thereby, of course, influencing and improving the quality of lives for these patients and also prolonging their survival. And with these characteristics and these properties that we have seen, we have actually performed a market analysis together with experts in the field and also made a sales forecast. And here I will present two of the different scenarios that is the outcome of this analysis. One more conservative and one more optimistic one. Of course, taking the underlying prevalent cases into account, those that are then being treated and actually also would have this disease characteristics of mild to moderate disease, and also then being in the end eligible for such a potential treatment. And the first scenario and the first case being the more conservative one is that we take into account a market share more similar to a standard of care drug. While the second one, the more optimistic, is then having a market share similar to a first-in-class drug. And we have, of course, also looked at other drugs and looked at their pricing and benchmarked the price and costs in that area. So the outcome of this is that in the first scenario, the more conservative one, there we assume with that patient share and market penetration, which is up to at a maximum 5%, we reach actually €1 billion or $1 billion market here at the peak sales, at where it peaks after 5 years after launch. And with the second more optimistic scenario where we have a assumed market share of up to 40%, there we reach even higher sales figures. So this is a great potential, of course, for the market. And there is a huge global market out there already. So this was looking a little bit more into the future, focusing again on where we are right now. And as I said in the beginning, we have completed a lot, and lately we have completed the tox studies and the tox program, and we are now awaiting the draft reports within shortly. We have also further refined our formulation together with Iconovo, and we have concluded that we now actually have the possibility to dose both very low doses and also very relatively high doses, and that is important in the first clinical trials where you need to have a possibility to dose, to start very low, but also be able to increase the dosing and the dose interval. And as I said, we have performed market access analysis, and we have also now completed most of our studies that using different disease models. And actually we have just submitted a manuscript together with our collaborators here in Lund University and at Karolinska, and we have submitted that manuscript to one of the journals in the respiratory research field. And we also have additional studies in progress and are initiating mechanistic studies to look further into the pharmacology. together with pulmonology experts, we are also now starting to look at the more detailed design of the early clinical trials and also all overall on the entire clinical development program. So we know where we are going and also have a better idea of that. And that we are doing together with some clinical experts and pulmonology experts. And of course, I want to thank you, those of you who might have participated in our rights issue, which was recently completed and where we actually raised 9.2 million Swedish crowns. So that was very good. And also, last but not least, we have a new CFO, which will focus on the investor relations and the financial planning going forward. In summary, as you have seen, the COPD, it's a disease and an indication with a high unmet medical need. And in addition, there is a large market that has the possibility to grow even further. And there we have our unique and patent-protected drug candidate Arcede 405, which has this dual mechanism of action with anti-inflammatory as well as airway relaxing properties. So with that, I want to conclude my presentation, and I want to thank you all for listening.
Thank you, Mia. You mentioned here research collaborations with Lund University, for example, and you're, as far as I understand, you're trying to gain a better understanding of the mechanism of action. Could you tell us a little bit more about what it is you're trying to find out in this collaboration?
Yes, we are looking, of course, I mean, there are several different pathways. It's a quite complex disease where, I mean, only the inflammatory pathways are quite complex. So it's a little bit more understanding which pathways and which molecules and so on that are involved in getting the clear effects that we see. I mean, we know what effects that we have and that we have these effects. Is more understanding, more molecular mechanism behind it.
And what is the benefit of having a dual mode drug compared to combining drugs?
I mean, of course, you get 2 in 1, which is, of course, good. Now, many patients, they get a dual combination. I mean, and then you have a fixed dose. And what is the advantage here is that we have this anti-inflammatory effect as well in combination, because it's especially the anti-inflammatory part where we lack the effect because the inhaled corticosteroids are really not that effective in this patient population, as it is, for example, in asthma.
We have a question about the route of administration, if it's oral or is it inhalation, just to clarify.
It's an inhalation, and that's what we are doing with Iconova then, looking at formulations and inhalers and dosing and so on.
Could you tell us a bit more about where you are in the work with Iconova?
Yes, we have. I mean, we are doing reiterations to be able to dose. I mean, as I said, in the early clinical trials, we need to be able to start low from a safety perspective. So you need to have a formulation that could handle that and that you get the amount out that you wish to at a sufficiently low dose, but also then to get it as high as you want to so that you can reach the therapeutic dose. And that's looking at refinements, I would say, and different options, how you can handle that as good as possible, I would say.
What's the timeline like in that project?
For the formulation, I mean, we are more or less, we are concluding on that. So it's, I mean, we have a good formulation right now that we could continue with, actually.
We also have a question about your target markets. Someone wondering if Asia is not a particularly interesting region where there's high pollution and smoking, which contributes to, I would then assume, what is a high incidence of COPD.
Definitely. This wasn't a part of this analysis, but we had to focus, and we couldn't take, I mean, the analysis would have been more extensive and have cost more money, actually, to do that. But, I mean, US is a big market, but, of course, Asia and all these countries are definitely. So that would add on to this analysis, of course.
Speaking of money, you mentioned the rights issue here, where you raised just over 9 million Swedish krona. Could you just elaborate a little bit on what this means for the ongoing development.
Yes. Yeah, this was actually then 72% of the entire of what we had asked for, so to say. So we can do a lot of what we had planned, of course, since it wasn't 100%. We can still do a lot, but we need maybe to postpone some of these activities a little bit. And then we have a warrant in January that is planned, so that we hope that we can, based on that, progress the other activities.
And you recently recruited a new CFO. Are you looking at further extending the team, or this is it for now?
Yeah, eventually, of course, we need further competencies as well, but this is it for now, yes.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Mia, for your presentation and the answers. And that is actually it for the longer presentations for the first session. Now we're on to our short pitches from private companies. And first, I would like to welcome CEO Simone Mester, and she is the CEO of Authera. Welcome.
Thank you. Exudative eye diseases are the leading cause of vision loss in developed countries. And sorry, I'll start again. So, exudative eye diseases are the leading cause of vision loss in developed countries, which greatly impacts the quality of life and ability to participate in everyday activities. These diseases are characterized by inflammation and leaky blood vessels in the eye, and it's estimated to affect more than 250 million patients by 2040. Up to 40% respond suboptimally to current treatments, and treatment resistant over time is very common. As such, there's an urgent need for treatment options for a growing global patient population. Our solution is a new antibody-based strategy to target a novel disease driver within these diseases. Our strategy offers a new mechanism of action to prevent vision loss and can be used as a treatment alone or in combination with existing treatment for improved therapeutic effect. As such, our strategy holds great potential for a large patient population. Authera is in the preclinical stage of developing a new antibody together with a pharmaceutical partner. Next week, we will have a press release out that will reveal who our partner is, and we are very excited to be able to share this news very soon. So within the next year, we will expand on a solid proof-of-concept data package by performing disease model studies in animals, and we will also generate new IP related to the antibody. In addition to have an experienced pharmaceutical partner on board, we also have clinicians and patient representatives involved in defining the patient need. We are currently exploring the antibody within ophthalmology, but data also supports that it holds great potential for treatment within other disease areas, and the potential here is therefore enormous. Authera is founded as a spin-off from a world-leading academic research group within the antibody field, and that's located at the University of Oslo. Authera is still fully owned by the researchers that founded the company now more than a year ago. And since the establishment of the company, we have financed our activities through income that we have generated through our method technology platform, which we explore in collaboration with other biotech and pharma companies to de-risk their development programs. So in combination with granted soft funding, this will finance our activities until 2025. We will be seeking financing to perform safety studies in animals, as well as CMC activities to fuel our development into the clinic. So we want to make a difference for patients in need. If you share our vision, please reach out to learn more about Authera. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Simone. I should have... Is that working? Thank you. I'm sorry, Mike, you did not fail at your one task. I should have explained a little bit more what the pitches are supposed to be like. They're supposed to be 3 minutes, as Simone knows very well, 3 minutes for up-and-coming unlisted companies with no slides, with just this information slide. And with that, we will thank you, Simone, for being our first short presenter, and welcome up Bernd Kunschner.
Bernd Kunschner, yes.
Thank you, who's the CEO of Samplimy.
Yes, thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I come from the company Samplimy, which is a medtech startup company based on research done at KTH in Stockholm in the field of micro and nano systems. And we have developed a product which can be used for painless, easy-to-use point-of-care microsampling of biomarkers in interstitial fluid in the skin. And this is an alternative or a complement to the traditional blood sampling. And even for some biomarkers where blood sampling is not even an option. And we have developed a prototype which has been tested on 24 volunteers with very good results, I might add. And now we are developing this prototype even further to make this product easier to use and even better. And also the plan is to use it in bigger clinical trials in patients this time. Our customers can be found in the healthcare system as in general, but we have a special interest for research groups. It can be, for example, in universities, university hospitals, and we have actually already received 2 orders from research groups abroad, even without any active promotion from our side. We also know that it can be of interest to pharma companies doing research and development, where biomarkers can be difficult to find in blood, or it's complicated to use blood, and then interstitial fluid can be a very good alternative. We also know there's a big and quickly growing market for self-testing, where most tests are done in blood, and then interstitial fluid from the skin could be a very good alternative for these self-testing as well. We are, as you can see on the slide here, open for investment. We have a pre-money valuation of 25 million SEK. And if you are interested in talking with us or with me, I will be here today for discussions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Bernd.
I think I kept 3 minutes.
You did. That was excellent timekeeping.
Thank you.
And here to finish off this first session is Anders Karlsson, the CEO of Bionamic. Welcome.
Thank you, and good morning. In drug discovery and development projects, what they all have in common is that they're very long, complex, and increasingly data intensive. So more so today than ever before, of course. And what they also all have in common is that there are no 2 that look exactly the same. So we see an increasing type of heterogeneity, more and more complex data, data volumes increasing, and so while that's true, what's also true is that to being competitive as a biotech, you need to leverage your data as well as possible. So we kind of see a conflict between having more and more data and also where the actual value of the data will be increasingly important. So you need a strategy there, and just putting Excel sheets on a SharePoint server isn't really a valid long-term data strategy. But Bionamic is. So we're a software company. We've developed a digital platform that helps people in the lab do their work more efficiently and with higher quality, while also building a really rich and well-structured data state, also in the early discovery and development phases. So we're not just talking about the downstream processes where everything is predetermined, but in that chaotic phase of early discovery. So we have validated this problem, which is easy, just talk to any scientist. But we also validated the product. So we're live or about to go live at about 10 different sites across Europe and the US. We have a software as a service business model with a yearly license fee between half and up to 3 million Swedish a year. We're currently targeting therapeutic antibody companies as our first segment, and are then expanding that into other advanced therapies like mRNA, gene, cell-based therapies, before, of course, being able to address the entire biotech industry. We're at a stage where we're looking for partners to really take the digitalization of biotech to the next level. We are outperforming our competitors in customer-driven evaluation projects. And yeah, exciting to talk to anyone who would be interested in joining our journey.
Thank you, Anders.
Thank you.